All right. I'm Melissa. This is Ryan. No. Maybe you should start.
Okay.
You start.
Well, I'm Ryan Spelts, and this is my wife, Melissa. And this is our first podcast. We're going to be starting a series here where we talk to business owners. And we actually have three different things we're going to do. One is going to be startup stories, hearing the stories of people who started their own business, and just hearing from other business owners here locally, which should be fun. I'm going to do a marketing and business tune-up show where business owners can bring little problems that they might be having, especially in regards to marketing or to the flow of the way their business runs. And so I have a talent at being able to tell people how to give them ideas on what they can fix. And then what was the third one? I have it written down, but so startup stories, marketing tune-up, and there's another one. We'll figure it out. But
yeah.
So we wanted to start with a little bit about ourselves and tell you the story. We own Connection Publishing. We also own a RoofMax dealership, but we'll talk about our starting of our Connection Publishing business and how that kind of came about. But I want to start with just a little bit of personal. We've been married for 24 years.
On Monday.
Yeah.
On Tuesday?
Yeah, Monday.
Yeah.
So Monday is our anniversary, January 2nd,
Yeah.
1999, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
We have 5 kids. Our oldest is 21 and our youngest is 11. It's bookend boys, so we got boys on both ends and then 3 girls in the middle. And we love our family. It's awesome.
We do.
And luckily, a lot of people say, how do you work together as a couple? But for us, it's been great. We love each other. We have, worked together now for 6.5 years, and it's been the best thing ever. I love working with Melissa. She's got such good ideas and so many talents and aspects that help me and just calm me down, because I tend to be the idea guy. I've got 100,000 ideas, and she's a calming force, but she's always been supportive and always been really good to work with, so that's been good. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, Ryan's awesome to work with too. He is just such a hard worker. When he says he's going to do something, he does it, and it's been fun to see just like you've dreamed something and then to see it come to life, and it's been fun. It's been a crazy journey, but it's been, today it's fun. So
well, we'll talk about the journey here too. So okay, so
I'm just going to ask you first off. I mean, are we done talking about ourselves? Yeah.
That's fun.
Okay. So what motivated you to start your own business?
I can remember even back in high school, I think I was in a class one time and they asked us what we wanted to do, what we wanted to do when we grew up. And I remember saying I wanted my own business. I've always really looked up to both of my grandfathers, and my father for that matter, but my grandpas were both entrepreneurs of some sort. My grandpa Spelts, that's our last name, he was a cattle rancher up in Idaho, and he did that for many years. He was very successful at it, and lived a very low-key life, but had been very successful in his business and saved a lot of money. He actually provided me and I have 5 sisters, there's 6 of us total, and then my cousin's family had 5 kids, or 4 kids, I think it's 4.
Yeah.
But he provided $10,000 each to each of us to go to college through his savings and through his earnings through his business, which he never had the opportunity to go to college, so he really felt like that was a valuable tool for each of us, which obviously helped pay for college, which was great. My other grandfather was kind of like me in a lot of ways, and I've always looked up to him, but he didn't really know what he wanted to be when he grew up, which is something I've struggled with. Not struggled with, but just I didn't have a clear direction. I didn't want to be a doctor or a dentist or a lawyer or an accountant or any of those things. And I remember taking an accounting course in college. My dad is an accountant, and I called him and I was like, "This is what you do for a living? This seems terrible." And he just laughed. He's like, "It's important stuff. Pay attention." So it was good to learn, but I couldn't imagine doing that for a living. So I just wasn't that way, and I didn't have a clear path. At one time, I wanted to be a teacher. I do love teaching, but I opted away from that, which I think is probably good. I would have gotten bored if I had just been in one career for 25 years or whatever. So, but that motivation to have my own thing sat with me my entire life. But all of a sudden, I was 40. I had this dream and I had never actually pursued it. I had a couple little small things along the way that we dabbled in and tried, but nothing ever really stuck. And so that was, that was level one, if you will. And I really wanted to do this. But another problem I always had was what to actually do. We talked about it so many times, but I didn't have a clear way to do that. So interestingly enough, my job came to an end. They had a change in technology, as happens in the world, and I could see the writing on the wall, and they wanted us to either change or move on, and I opted to move on. So I was without a job. I said, I'm 40, let's make this happen. And I was 39 at the time, but let's make this happen. And so I got online, as you do, and I searched up options and franchises and different things. We didn't have a ton of money, but we had some savings, and so I thought, well, let's buy something and have our own thing. And I found this one that I was really interested in. I purchased the franchise or whatever it was, and about 6 months in, I knew I had made a mistake. Yeah. And it started becoming a challenge. But we did that for about a year, but in that time, we were still praying and brainstorming and trying to figure out what we could do next. Yeah. And so that was kind of the motivation behind it. And I'll let you talk a little more about this, but one day I was driving my son. We live in Ogden, Utah, the northern part of Utah, and BYU is in Provo, which is about an hour and a half to 2 hours away, depending on traffic. So I was driving him down to a kind of a camp, like a week-long camp. They called it EFY at the time. It's different now, but I was driving him down there, and for some reason it just popped in my head. I had worked for a company in Las Vegas that did publishing, and they had published city magazines, or actually HOA magazines. Yeah. So they had teamed up with HOAs, and my brother-in-law found out about them, and so we had this magazine for them in this area in Las Vegas, and it went pretty good at first, and then the 2008 crash happened, and advertisers would call us and say, well, we want to keep advertising, but we can't pay you right now. And we're like, that's not how it works. So eventually that magazine closed, and then we eventually moved to Utah. It was in Las Vegas at the time. It's where I grew up. And then I called my wife and I said, Melissa, what do you think about starting a magazine like we had down in Vegas, but we control the content instead of it being someone else, and I'm just selling the ads? And that's kind of where the idea came from.
So when Ryan called me, I was on my way to girls' camp. I was the camp director for our church, and Ryan told me his idea, and I was like, oh, it's probably just an idea. Like, when I get back from girls' camp, it's probably going to be like, oh, it was a good idea, but here's another idea. And so I just had this feeling like it wasn't going to stick. So I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And then I got back from girls' camp, and we had this long drive. I took a nap, and then that night we left to pick up our son. And then we had to drive to Lake Powell for a family reunion with Ryan's sister. They own a houseboat there at Lake Powell, and so it was a long drive. And so it was going to be an all-nighter, and the whole way we talked about it. And all the kids were asleep, and every time, like the whole time we were talking, I just felt the Spirit so strongly. And we had been praying so much for guidance to know what we should do. And I told Heavenly Father, like, please just let me know when we find it. And so when I felt the Spirit, I'm like, okay, I guess this is it. We're gonna move forward with this. And you know, like, I always thought, once you receive that prompting from Heavenly Father, then everything just falls into place. It's going to be super simple, super easy. And but we learned that it's not always easy, you know. You have some things you have to learn, and sometimes it's hard. But,
yeah.
So.
Yeah, and on my end, I think this is actually really a neat business for me, because I have a unique personality in that I am a salesman. That's been my career, is selling for different companies, and I enjoy it. I enjoy meeting people. I've always taken pride in being an honest salesman and telling people the truth and helping people make purchases that will benefit them and you know, bring blessings to their life. That's just been the way I've done it. I've even had conversations with mentors that said, you know, you could make more money selling this versus that. And I'm like, yeah, I just don't like that. It doesn't matter that I can make more money. I would prefer to do something that I particularly love. So with this, I get to be a part of the sales and be out and meeting people, especially business owners, which I love, which is, you know, an exciting and neat part of what we do. But on the other hand, we get to be creative and come up with content and come up with ideas that we hope that people will be entertained by and enjoy, and so that's been great. But why don't you tell a story about when we first got started and you just assumed I was going to handle everything, and well, we both did, I think.
Yeah. So I had been a stay-at-home mom for 16 years. Our oldest was 15, maybe around there.
Out there.
Our youngest was not. He had another year until he would be in kindergarten. And so I just was like, okay, like, I'll make top ramen for dinner. Like, my parents had their own business too, and they started it when I was 11. And so I knew that it wasn't going to be easy, you know, just seeing their journey. But so I was like, okay, I'll make homemade bread. I'll do what I need to do to help our family on this end. But go ahead, go start this business. I support you on this end. And then Ryan started working. We got the okay from the city, which took a long time. Just, you know, every time you have to go meet with the city council, but they only meet every so often, and it takes time to get everybody on board, and so it took a little bit of time. And then we were there, and Ryan was working. He was out there selling, and then it came to about, I don't know, a week and a half or 2 weeks before this magazine was supposed to go to print. And I was like, I think I need to help you. Can I help you with anything? And he said, yeah, can you start gathering content? And so we made a plan, and then I went out. And honestly, it was so scary for me because I had been a stay-at-home mom for so long. Going out and asking people to put their lives in a magazine that's going to go out to everybody in our community, even putting our life in the magazine, it was really hard for me. But I went out and gathered up all the information, and it was great. And then Ryan's like, okay, can you do that again? And so I went from being a stay-at-home mom to going to women in business meetings, which I wasn't a business lady, so I had to like learn how to like be myself in this community. That, you know, they're very fancy. They dress up very nice, and I was a t-shirt and jeans kind of mom. And but I learned so much, and everybody was so kind, and it was great. So.
And on my end, you know, I've been a salesman my whole career, and there's always that fear when you start something new and you're selling something new. Will I be able to do it? Can I figure it out? At that point, I'd been selling things for almost 20 years, and so I thought, oh, I'll be fine. But there was a lot of fear for me just trying to go out and talk to businesses and tell them what we were going to do. Part of that fear was it was the first time it was mine, and I didn't want to mess it up. The second part of that fear was I didn't have a product. Like, I had to go out and sell ads and be like, we're going to make this imaginary magazine. And it's going to be great. The idea, just to give you a little bit of background, is we decided we wanted to be the official city magazine. So replace the fold-up newsletter that most people get with their utility bill. But times have been changing, and often people pay their utility bill online, and they didn't get that bill in the mail anymore. So cities were struggling, and still struggle, to get the word out, to tell everybody about what's happening in their community. And so we come in and offer what we felt like it was a good win-win, is we'll create a full-featured, full-color magazine. The first 8 pages will be city news and information. It'll serve as the city newsletter. And then the rest of the publication, 32 to 64 pages, will be local human interest stories, recipes, students of the month, business spotlights, feature stories. We wanted to have great content that people loved and would read, and that of course would be supported by advertising. And then the advertising sales is how we make our money. And so that's what we proposed to the city. Mm-hmm. But it took so much time to sell, and I was out every day. Well, I got to tell a little story. I have a good friend, Shane Weiser. He was my boss before at another company, and I told him what I was doing, and he was very supportive of it. And he said, "Hey, that sounds great. Go do it." And then he, I was struggling. He's like, "How are your sales going?" And I was like, I've talked to a bunch of people, but I haven't made any sales. And he went into a local car dealership here, John Watson Chevrolet, and met with the son of the owner, who's now the owner. And he said, "Hey, my friend's starting this idea. He's going to be selling advertising. You should be in it." And Corey Watson, who is the owner of John Watson Chevrolet, he said, "Yeah, I'm interested in that. Have him come and see me." And so I went in and met with him, and that was my very first sale. He signed an advertising agreement for a year. They've been with us for 6 years now, and they've been a great partner. But it's, that was that first, it pushed me over the edge to get that sale. Like, okay, people will buy this. Even though I don't have anything to show them yet, they'll buy into the concept of what we're going to do. And from there, it got better and better, and started making sales and kind of building it from there. So
yeah, it's a good friend.
Yeah, he's a good friend. So why don't you tell maybe what was the hardest thing for you in this whole process? Like, what's been the most challenging?
Okay, I think the hardest part was juggling being a mom and working. And we were not just working, it wasn't even full-time. It was over full-time. We were just constantly working. Our youngest son, Gray, he was probably 4 at that time, and he was just my buddy. So he would come with me to interview people or get stories and take pictures and all of that stuff. And I think that was the hardest part, is just juggling being a mom, having dinner made, being on that side, where you have to make dinner because you don't have a lot of money coming in. And then also working a ton of hours, and then having the house clean and laundry and taking care of your family. So I think that was the hardest part for me. So how about for you?
Well, from an observation standpoint too, with you, I remember we did Student of the Month. We still do it, and so we award Student of the Month to some high-performing students in the schools, local schools in each area. And you had to go to the school, and you were so nervous to go talk to these school administrators about awarding this thing. And I just remember saying, they're going to like it because it's a good thing. But she was just so nervous about possible rejection, and then just getting out and putting herself out there.
Well, and like you said, talking about a magazine that doesn't exist. I can't show them oh, this is what other city, we do for other cities. But it got easier with new cities that we gained because I did have something to show them. And so, that was so hard. But like you said, everybody was kind, and they were on board. They wanted to have another place that they could highlight their students, and so.
I would say the hardest thing for me, it's hard to say because it changes probably as time goes on. But initially, the hardest thing was, I always said, well, if I could own my own business, then I would be in control, and I could decide what we do, where it goes. And that is true. I have that desire to be the person who founded it. That's why we didn't do another franchise, because I was like, it just needs to be ours. We need to start it from scratch. But starting things from scratch, as if you're an entrepreneur, you know how hard this is. It is just so tremendously challenging, and just even getting the word out about what you do. Luckily, I was a direct salesman before, so I just got out and went and talked to businesses. That helped. It didn't make it easy, but it helped that I knew how to go do that, and I wasn't afraid. Like, I have had clients who start stores or things, and they really struggle to just get people to know what they do, because they're new. And when you're new, a lot of times you don't have a lot of money, so you can't spend thousands of dollars a month on advertising, because it doesn't work. You just don't have it. And so we benefited from me just getting out and going and talking to the people we were serving, door to door, face to face, belly to belly, just like I had done my whole career. And that was a benefit. But man, it sure was hard to mentally get there. And then the complexities of starting a business. So I remember one of the things that happened is we had two neighboring cities that we started with, North Ogden and Pleasant View. And so I was trying to figure out with the post office how to mail to North Ogden, and then they border each other so that there's a line, it's a squiggly line that goes down through the city. And then on the other side is Pleasant View. And I went to the post office and I was like, well, how do I tell the difference between the addresses from Pleasant View and North Ogden? And they're like, we don't know. And I was like, you're the post office, how do you not know? And they're like, well, it's all 84414, so it doesn't matter to us. We just deliver, like our postal delivery people, they just go up the street, and if it crosses over into the other city, they're not paying attention, they're just delivering to the address. And so they're like, we really don't know. And that was really challenging, and I remember just fretting over this and late nights trying to figure it out. And so eventually I got out in my car and I would drive to where I'd look on the map. They had these county and city maps on Google, and so I'd look at the map and I'd go drive to that location and find the houses, and I would write down the addresses so I knew where the numbers started into Pleasant View and stopped in North Ogden. And I had to go up through this whole line and do that to, I don't know, probably 200 or 300 houses. I don't remember. It was a lot, and it took forever, and it was all done by hand. And that's just one of those things where when you start a business, you just have to be like all in and just say, doesn't matter what it takes, I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that was one of those hard things. But so what's been the best part then for you?
I think there's a couple things. Like, I've really loved working with Ryan. I feel like we've become closer as a couple, which is really cool. Like you said, some couples can't do that, but we've become closer. We have the same goals we're working towards, and we work hard together, and we have to have meetings together, and we sometimes have those meetings during lunch or dinner, which is really fun. So I liked that we got to spend more time together. But also, I think I liked that we were teaching our kids to follow your dreams, we were showing them, like, this is our dream and we're going to go do it. And now that our kids are older, our oldest son, he was young at that time. I mean, we were super poor because we had started this business and all of our money was going into it. And he would get really upset sometimes. He was at that junior high age where, it was super important for you to have a lot of clothes and a lot of shoes and different things, and we couldn't afford it. And so, but he would get mad at us and say, why don't you get a real job, but now he's 21 and we talk to him, and he's just proud of us. And now he started his own business with you too. And I was shocked when he did that because it was so hard on him. But I think he understands, like, this is what I want to do, and so he's going to go forward too. And I hope that helped our kids. I feel like it has. They're super hard workers because they've seen us work hard, and so I think it's benefited our family in that way. But how about you?
Well, I think because I have had that dream for so long, that's been really fulfilling to start something and to actually see it develop into a real company, and have employees and have responsibilities and have problems and fires to put out and all those things that sometimes are day-to-day so challenging. But in reality, I just feel so grateful that we have that. It's interesting because I made more money working for other people. I had successful career, and we weren't and aren't millionaires or anything like that, but we had, I made good money. We have a beautiful home. We live in a really nice part of town. I don't like spending a lot of money on cars, and so we don't drive the nicest cars, but we have like 6 of them. We have from a 1972 Chevy pickup that we use for our Roof Max business to, cars that all of our kids can drive and things like that. So that's been, I feel very blessed that we've lived that life, and that we've been blessed in that way. But this has been way harder from an income standpoint, but so satisfying because we've built something from zero to now over $700,000 in business. We have 5 publications, and we've had successes and failures along the way, but we definitely have had a lot of success. So I think that's probably the best part, is just looking back on that. And it has carried over to our children, that hard work ethic. Just recently, life has changed significantly for us in the last year. So I guess it feels like a year, but it's probably been more like 2.5. But our kids have started growing up. We have a 21-year-old, a 19-year-old, and an almost 18-year-old. And all 3 of them, the 21-year-old had moved out a little while ago. And then our 19-year-old and 17-year-old moved out, and they went up to potentially go to college. It's funny, they moved to go to college and then they didn't go to college, so they've just been working and trying to earn money, but they just wanted to get out of the house. But they've all had to get jobs, and it's been really satisfying as a parent to watch them, because they have excelled. Each time they get a job, each time one of them gets a job, they're just such hard workers, and they've utilized that to become successful in their jobs, get promotions, get lots of praise. And as a parent, that's just so satisfying, because you just hope that you've taught the good principles to your kids and that they'll use them when they do that. So that's been really probably my favorite thing, as part of that. So
I don't know. So kind of like walk us through the journey that we've been through, like after we started this business.
So I met the mayor one day. He was a newer mayor in our city. I actually hadn't even voted for him. I didn't know him before and didn't vote for him. I voted for a guy that I kind of knew, but this guy won. And I didn't really care. They both seemed like good guys, but he became the mayor, and then they started going to church with us. And I was like, oh, that's the mayor. And so I went over and met him, and we talked. And a couple weeks later, I called. We had this idea, and so I called him and I said, hey, I want to meet with you if you're open to it, and I want to tell you about this idea I have that I think would benefit the city. And he said, sure, let's meet. And so I went in and met with him and presented the idea. And it was one of those things where it wasn't even fully formed yet as an idea. I knew I'd worked for that magazine, and I knew, they had done official HOA publications, and so I was like, well, maybe I could be the official city magazine. HOAs aren't as popular up here as they were in Las Vegas, and so, but it just wasn't fully an idea. And interestingly enough, that mayor and I butted heads a few times, but he actually helped me formulate the business plan, because he'd be like, well, that's not a good way to do that, and he'd get mad at me, and I am stubborn, and so often I would kind of bite back, but eventually I would say, you know what, there's wisdom in what he's saying. He's one of my clients, and so I need to try and help him with what he wants and help him get what he wants, and it helps. So, but that was the start, and we initially just started selling, but all of the money that we would make from advertising was going towards publishing the magazine. And so I would work nonstop. I mean, I would, as soon as a magazine would go to print, then I would go back out and start selling, and I'd sell all day, and I'd network with people, and I'd get to know people, and I'd sell ads, and then I'd come home at night after businesses people started leaving or whatever. I'd come home at night, and we'd work on content, and we put together, we do some things that are very manual, like we put together a a calendar of events of anything we can find in the local area so that people can just open up the magazine and see what's happening. And that was time consuming.
Yeah.
The recipes weren't too bad. My wife is a great cook. She loves to cook, and she's even done a few blogs over the years of food. You know, she has some food allergies, and so she and her sisters who have the same allergies did a blog with that. And then she's also even done ones where our kids are like, we need this recipe, we need that recipe, but with them moving around, she's kind of put that together. And so that's been really fun. But because of that, she has thousands of pictures of food. I'm always like, why are you taking a picture of your food? So but that's been so beneficial to the business because we've done recipes now for 6 years. That's a lot of recipes when you do 3 or 4 every month, and you put together these ideas, which is kind of cool. And food has always been important to us, and both of our families are, when we get together, we eat really delicious food. Both of our moms are awesome cooks, and our grandmas are awesome cooks. So that's been a fun part of that. But it just was so overwhelming, all of the stuff we were doing at first, and it was us two, and we had hired a graphic designer, Christina, who was amazing.
So amazing.
Done magazines for many years, and she was incredible. And she would guide us because we're like, what do we do here? And she would tell us, well, most magazines do this, and that helped a lot. And so we started publishing, and then as we got our first few magazines out, and the magazine was at least paying for itself, we weren't taking any paychecks at all, and that was really challenging. We were really suffering. But I had this impression that we also needed to be online because clearly, we live in the 21st century. So I worked really hard. I had to figure out how to build a website, which I had never done before.
Yeah.
And I put together the website, and so we started publishing everything in print and then everything online on a website, and then we would share all of that information on social media as well, so that the goal or the idea was that everybody will be able to see this no matter how they consume information. Like if they just are on their phone and they're going through Facebook, they can see our articles and read them that way, or if they want to go to the website, they can do that, and if they want to go to, if they want to read the magazine, they can. And then we even put the magazine into a digital format, so like you can look at it on an iPad as its fully designed self, which is kind of cool too. So
that is cool.
that was an important point. It just took so many hours. I just remember, I would work sometimes till 1 in the morning, and we'd be back up early the next day, out running around, trying to get sales, trying to gather news and information. And we never were a news magazine. It was always stories, but you still have to put it together. And then Melissa this is her superpower. She's so good at brainstorming and coming up with ideas, but then she would sit down and she wasn't as good of a writer, and so she couldn't get the stuff in her head out onto paper, and so I became her ghostwriter. And so she'd come to me, and because I know her so well, I could take what she was saying as her ideas, and I could turn them into an article and then have them be from her. And
it was pretty bad at first. Like, my writing was really bad. It was a little embarrassing, like I would work so hard. I'd spend hours and hours, and then Ryan would come in and just like fix it in like 2 minutes, and it was a little frustrating. I wished at that time that I was a good writer. So kids, pay attention in school in your English class, because it does come in handy. It is important.
And I wouldn't even say I'm a good writer, but I'm better at putting things to. I think because of my sales background, I was able to. I'm a very conversational writer. I'm not like a very technical, super skilled writer. We have a lot better writers that work for us now, but at that time I was all we had. So, but I was good at least at communicating, making it clear so people could tie into that. So, but I think, at that point, it just seemed like, I remember thinking, I got a boulder on my back and I'm climbing a gravel hill, like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. It just felt like there was never any money. And what was interesting is we'd get a deal, somebody would say, okay, I'll advertise. They'd sign up for a $4,000 contract, for example. And I thought, oh man, that is so much money. And they would say, I'm going to pay in full. I'd be like, oh, that's even better. Like, that'll give us some money. And we'd put that into the account, and it would just get sucked right out with, postage and print costs and paying everybody. And for the first couple of years, I just remember thinking, we're the last ones that are paid. Everybody else gets paid except for us. We pay the printer, we pay the postman, we pay, anybody else who worked on the publications, and then we don't get paid, and it was frustrating. I think the first year we made $18,000. The second year we made $17,000, and that was our only income. And so we had a little bit of savings. We had to use a little bit of debt. Like it was pretty frustrating. We were in dire straits, and
very stressful.
I lost a car. I had to return it to the bank because I couldn't make the payments on it. And
lost some hair.
I did have hair when we started. I had more hair than I have now. So
gained
that
some
was
weight.
hard.
Yeah. It was a little crazy.
Yeah. So now today, so what happened is we started North Ogden about, I'd say 7 or 8 months in. I got a phone call, and it was the city manager from Syracuse City, which is another local city here in Utah, named similar to Syracuse in New York. I think people who started that city came from there, but they called and said, "Hey, we saw your North Ogden magazine. Are you interested in doing other cities?" And I said, "Sure, we'll do other cities." And so we met with Syracuse City. Again, it took longer than we were expecting, but eventually they signed the agreement and said, "We want to have your publications as well." And so we started doing that, which was really cool. And then another city called, and another city. So today we have 5 publications. We've had one that failed, that didn't make it, and it was sad because we really loved doing the publication, but we just couldn't get the ad support for it.
It was too big of a city, but we've learned a lot from that, which was good.
It didn't really fit our niche, which is the smaller cities. The bigger city is such an expense to print and then mail a really large population that we just couldn't make the finances work on it, and then we were losing money on it, so we had to close it last year. But we have 5 different cities that we work with. We have 7 employees outside of us. 4 of those are full-time, and then 3 are part-time. And then we have about 10 contractors. So the contractors include writers, graphic designers, and like content people who help with like proofreading or putting things on social media, stuff like that. We've kind of found a good little niche there where we have a lot of stay-at-home moms that wanted to work but didn't want to have a job. They wanted flexibility around their kids, and so we have a few of those, which has been really nice. So right now that's what it looks like. Last year we did just over $700,000 in sales. We at the beginning of the pandemic, I was really afraid because obviously the world was changing. And so we were really nervous, but the pandemic really didn't hurt us that much. We actually grew during the pandemic, which was kind of fun. But the post-pandemic situation has been much more difficult. We're actually dealing with that right now, but our costs have gone up significantly. About 65%, the print costs have increased. Paper shortages and all of those things have caused major increases there. We're hoping there's some easing on that this year, but that's made it very challenging. But again, I'm grateful that we have something to be challenged with, and I can tend to get bored if I'm not challenged. So that's there as well. But what's your favorite part about the business nowadays?
I think it is the people that we work with. We just have so many people that we've met over the years. We've actually even just like our advertisers, they've become our friends. We just have a lot of connections and people that are around us, which has been really fun. So, and then they work with us, and we have like a writers meeting, a content meeting, and it's fun to hear everybody else's ideas and then to see it come to life, on paper too. And so I don't know, I think things like that. I love the creativity of it, and I call myself a wannabe photographer before we started this magazine, but I've taken so many pictures now. I feel like I've grown, and I actually call myself a photographer now. And then
She's really good.
And then with the food blog and all that stuff, like all those food blogs and all the pictures that I had with food, it's been really fun to see all of those recipes go out into print too. So I don't know, I think the creativity part is really fun. How about you? What's your favorite part?
I definitely agree with that. I think my favorite part, though, is despite all the challenges and despite all of those frustrations, with costs going up so much and just it being overwhelming and constantly worried about, are we going to make enough revenue to cover the costs and all of those things? Mm-hmm. Looking back and seeing how hard we worked, but it's here, we've created something, we've built it into a company that's, it's providing income for people. This is, mm-hmm. We have employees and we love them like family and they're awesome and they work really hard for us. But that's a value I've had for a long time, is I wanted to create something that had a positive impact in the world, but I also wanted something that created an opportunity for people to be impacted by it. And, I think we impact our cities. I think they get a huge benefit from having the publications because it's in just such a better format than the old newsletter style. That's very positive. I think our readers benefit from it. We had the idea initially where, you think about old time, back in the day, people would sit on their porch and they, sit on their rocking chairs and people would walk up and down the street and they would share the news and the gossip and they would visit, but everybody knew everybody. And today, we pull up to our house, we hit the button, we pull into the garage, hit the button again, and get out of our car and go inside, and we don't know our neighbors. We've spent our life in two different places. We lived the first 10 years of our marriage in Las Vegas, and we've spent the last, 13 years, 14 years now? Yeah. 14 years here in northern Utah. I'm from Las Vegas, she's from northern Utah, so that's kind of what brought us up here, was to be closer to her family for a while, and we've loved it. But Utah's a lot more warm of a place, like more willing for neighbors to know each other, but I just still felt like people didn't feel connected to their community. That's why we called it Connection Publishing. Mm-hmm. Especially for me, being an outsider, well, and both of us really, we were outsiders for this particular community. Mm-hmm. Her sister lived here at the time, and so that was what brought us to North Ogden, but just that it felt like I felt way more at home in Las Vegas. I just knew Las Vegas, I knew the area, and I didn't feel that way here. And it's amazing how many times we've actually heard that from people where they're like, we moved in here and then all of a sudden your magazine showed up in the mail and it just made me feel connected to the community. It made me feel like I knew what was happening, and it was just it's such a cool tool that way. I think that's looking at it from, moving back out of the problems and the messes of the everyday. I think that's the thing that I just feel proud that we built that despite how hard it was, we even came up with our own hashtag, SWASH, SWASH. Somehow we are still here. Because, making $17,000 in a year and $18,000 the next year, it's just not enough money.
With 5 kids and...
Yeah, it was miserable. And it's a miracle. We thank Heavenly Father every day, because not only are we here, but during that time we kept our house. That was a legitimate concern at one point, that we weren't making our house payment, but that worked out. We didn't have money for Christmas, and miraculously, like $1,200 showed up in the mail one day in an unmarked envelope. And another year, our religious leader, we call him a bishop, but our bishop showed up and he's like, I just feel this prompting. I was given this by another member of our church, and he said they want to remain anonymous, but they said, please give this to someone who needs it. And he's like, I had the strongest feeling that that's you guys. And he showed up and he gave us $1,000.
And we had just told the kids, like, we're not really gonna have that much of a Christmas.
Yeah, we're not gonna have any presents, and
it'll be okay, but it's not gonna be that big of a Christmas. And then we were able to have Christmas for them, and it was it made us cry. Our garage broke one year, and our cars were all in the garage, and we had to move everything out. It was December, and it was freezing outside that year, in the negatives. Our neighbors are like, what are you doing? You don't clean your garage. And we told them, and we went to Las Vegas for the holidays, and then we came back, and our garage was fixed. And
so it was the spring, and if you've ever had that happen, it puts all the pressure of that spring keeping the garage closed. So even 2 or 3 people trying to lift the garage, we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So our cars were stuck in the garage, but luckily we have a 3-car garage that it's connected, and so we had a bunch of crap over there.
The bikes and like
Yeah.
all the kid stuff
and boxes and whatever,
Yeah.
tools, and so
camping gear.
we pulled all of that stuff out and put it in the yard, and then we did like 300 point, backing up and
To get the
going
cars
forward
out.
to get the cars out that 3rd car garage. It was not easy.
No.
It took hours, but we're like, we'll be okay. We don't have the money to fix our garage, but it'll still be okay. We're
Yeah.
going to see family for Christmas.
We'll just
and
keep our cars
We'll just park
outside.
outside. That's okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the end of the world. But anonymously, we don't know who did it, but a garage door company showed up, fixed our garage. They had to replace the garage, so they put a new garage door in.
Yeah.
And I had called garage door companies, and this was one of the companies that I called asking for prices. And I was just told her, we can't afford it. We just don't have the money to do that. And miraculously, this company shows up, and I was like, hey, I didn't hire you guys. Like, I just got a bid from you. I don't have the money to pay for this. And he looks at the paperwork, the tech, he looks at the paperwork, and he's like, well, this is paid for. It's paid in full. And I'm like, what? I didn't pay. I was so confused. And he
was really sweet. He was like, I think somebody loves you.
Yeah.
Like, I think somebody's watching out for you. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And
yeah,
it was
that was
really,
pretty special.
yeah. So we've been blessed along the way, but it's been a definite like up and down roller coaster ride. But yeah, I am proud of us too for the things we've done. So.
And last year, things have changed. Obviously, we've been able to, increase our income, which has been great. We've been able to put money into savings, which has been great, and we've been able to do some other things. And a quote that I quote to my kids quite often is that, poor people buy stuff, rich people buy more stuff, and wealthy people buy assets. And we've wanted to build wealth, and so we've decided to focus on buying some assets. And my son, my oldest, had gone out last summer. I was really proud of him because he, as a younger man, he tended to give up on stuff pretty easily. Like, he played baseball. He was really good at baseball. And he played football. He was pretty good at football. But as soon as things got hard, like, he went to the high school to do tryouts or their preseason workouts, and he didn't like it. It was too hard, and so he gave up on football, and then he eventually gave up on baseball because his grades weren't good enough to be able to stay on the team. And instead of fixing his grades, he was just like, all right, I just won't play baseball. And it was so frustrating as a parent to watch your kid make those choices, because you knew, and it has been true, he regrets making a lot of those decisions. But at 19 or whatever he was, he decided he was going to go out and do summer sales, which in Utah, if you're not from here, it's kind of an interesting thing. Sales is a common part of our life. There's the biggest direct sales companies in the world are located in Utah, and they send out tons of young men and young women across the United States to go do door-to-door sales. It's kind of a cultural thing, and growing up in Las Vegas, that was not the case there. So I know it's not everywhere, but it is very, very popular here. And so he decided with his friends they were going to go out and sell pest control out in Florida, Texas, Florida, and Alabama. And he went out not this last summer, but the summer before. And I thought, man, I know it. I've done door-to-door sales. I've done it for a long time. It is not an easy job. It is a lot of rejection, a lot of mental, it really trains your mental toughness, because it is so tough to stay focused when you're just not getting sales. And I thought, there's no way he's going to go out there and do well at this. And not only did he make it through the summer, but he made like $40,000 that summer, and he did so well. We were just so surprised and so proud of him. I don't know about surprised. He's really a sharp kid. He's dynamic, but I just was so proud that he stuck with it despite it being hard. And I came across Roof Max, which is a kind of a new concept. It's a spray-on. It's a soybean oil compound that you spray on asphalt shingles, and it treats them, reanimates them, makes them flexible again so that they can continue doing their job. So it basically gives you 5 more years, up to 15 more years on an old roof. And we have an old roof. And I thought, that would be a cool product to have, to spray on our roof. And I actually saw a TikTok video on it. That's how I found out about it. TikTok became huge during the pandemic. And so I filled out the little form and asked them to call me. A couple weeks went by, nobody called me. And then I saw the ad again, and I was like, that company never called me. That's weird. So then I went in and went to the main corporate website, and they're nationwide and have hundreds of dealerships now. But I went on there and I sent an email or a message or something, and I just said, hey, I sent in information, I didn't get anything back, and I got the message back, well, we don't have a dealer in your area, so that's why nobody's calling you, because there's nobody that could actually do the service. And I was like, oh, well, how much is a dealership? And the price was such that we could afford to do it, but we're very busy with Connection Publishing, and so I thought, well, that's a cool idea, but I don't know how I could pull that off and have that be there. But I really like the idea of having another asset, like a business like that. So I called my son and I said, hey, I'm really proud of you for what you've done this last year, and would you ever consider being in business with me, being my partner? And he was like, I don't know, what do you have in mind? And so I sent him all the information on Roof Max. I got the dealership information from him. I told my son I can afford to buy a dealership and all the equipment that is needed to do it. I just can't work it. I'm too busy, so I need someone to run it. And I said, if you are willing to partner with me, then you can be the the manager of it, at first the salesman, the technician, and everything. And the more we looked at it, the more excited we got about it, and we purchased that in October of 2020. Is that right? No, 21.
Yeah.
So yeah, October of 2021, and we ran that this last year, and I'm super proud of him and what he's done there. It's been a great investment for us.
You guys are going to talk about this together.
Yeah, we're going to bring him on, and we're going to do a podcast with him and starting that. So we'll save some of that for that, but it's just been really exciting to be part of that. And having our own business not only gave us the ability to purchase that at the time, but it also gave us the ability to know how to market it, know how to get it out to market. And we've had really a lot of success doing that in the magazines and in social media and digital advertising, which are all things that we've learned just having this business and we help businesses with, which has been really cool. So that's been an exciting journey, and we'll bring Kobe on so you can meet him and we can go through that story as well. But anything else we should talk about?
I don't know. I don't know. I think if anybody is like working towards starting their own business or who is maybe in the process and they're struggling, they're at that second year of having their own business, just stick with it. My dad had his own business, and there were times where he was ready to sell it for like nothing because he was just so frustrated with it. And my mom would say, no way. And in the end, it was a very successful business, and it provided for my mom and my dad. But my dad had this thing that he would tell. Did he tell you this quote? Or I can't remember who he told. He was one of my sisters. He said, there is plenty of room at the top, but not very many people make it because they're not willing to put forth the work. So just hang in there. You've got this. We're not like set. We're not, done with our hard work and with our stretching and growing, but it definitely is feeling a lot better, and it does get better. So just keep moving forward.
Yeah. If you like the content, we're going to be doing more of these and bringing in our friends and clients that have businesses and started things, and we'll be talking about those success stories. And so like and subscribe, follow along, and ask any questions you want to ask. We're happy to go through anything. So.
For sure.